Right, welcome everybody to another episode, not of the Comics in Motion podcast, Dave, but the Star Wars Comics in Canon podcast. And this is a very special one today, my friend, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And you don't sound like Mike Burton at all. So we are sort of
hijacking. As young as him.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? But no, we're hijacking Mike's show temporarily. Mike will be on the show, of course. We'll have Mike, we'll have Scott, we'll have a whole bunch of different people. But Chris, we wanted to do a special on The Mandalorian, didn't we? Because, well, I'm sure we're going to be gushing as we go in, but it's going to be 8 episodes through the series. And I tell you what, Chris, we gave Star Wars a little bit of a ribbon, didn't we, when all 4 of us got together and we went through, all the prequels, the original trilogy, the sequels, and certainly we gave the last one, Rise of Skywalker, both barrels, didn't we? But
yeah.
We wanted to jump on for The Mandalorian because, you know what, Chris, putting my cards right out there straight off the bat, I think this might be just better than most of the movies,
I wouldn't disagree with you, Dave. I do think that, let me think, I like The Force Awakens, but I think my favourite out of the last trilogy, not trilogy, well, it was 5 of them, wasn't there, is Rogue One. It's obviously a pre-Star Wars movie. It was before episode 4, but that for me had everything I wanted in a Star Wars sort of film, I think. And I don't mind, to be honest, Dave, I don't mind Rise of Skywalker. I don't mind The Last Jedi. Genuinely, there's a few good bits in it, but I do think this, it just has an edge to it, and the cinematography in it is fantastic, which I know we'll get into, but I love the first series. I couldn't get enough of it. This one, and the great thing about this first episode, and spoilers, guys, obviously we're going to talk about certain things in the plot as always, but it's 54 minutes long, Dave. And I'm like, this is perfect. The other episodes were like 25, 30 minutes, weren't they? I think one of them was about 40. And I don't know whether they're going to be longer every episode this time round. I'm not sure because the content was great, but it did leave you wanting more. But this, for me, what an opening episode. Absolutely. Cards on the table, Dave. I loved it.
Yeah, and this one's written and directed by Jon Favreau. So he obviously he's the showrunner. Did the first season, but individual episodes have their own writers, don't they? So Jon Favreau doesn't actually write each of those episodes, but I do feel like when he does the episode, it's just it's slightly better than the other episodes, certainly for season 1. But Chris, I think with this first episode, I think they've come out firing on all cylinders straight off the bat, and I was trying to think to myself, is this so much better, or am I just starved of content, new content, as everything gets pushed back from the cinema and stuff? But Chris, I thought that the cinematography was phenomenal. It reminded me of those old classic westerns, the westerns that I tell you that I don't really like, but I can absolutely appreciate the epic scale of it and just how it looks. And there's a guy called Barry Idone, or Idone, something like that. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly. Did all the cinematography, and let's just call him Baz. Barry, you've done a stellar job there because I think it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, Chris, I mean, what are your first impressions of this first episode?
I just think it carries on from the whole first series. What I love about The Mandalorian is he's got like a dry wit about him as well, Dave. It's very good, and it's very good writing, and it's great acting and the delivery to have a character that you like who never takes his mask off. And I know that we get that a bit with C-3PO and things like that, don't we, in the original Star Wars stuff. And even, obviously I know, Dave, this is terrible. Oh, no.
Don't know where you're going.
Neither do I. I can't believe I can't think of his name.
The main guy, the Mandalorian?
No, I'm thinking of Star Wars. Dave, no,
Luke
you
Skywalker,
can't tell me.
Mark Hamill.
No, keep going. Oh,
Chewbacca.
That is horrendous, Chris. You had the figures and everything. That is horrendous. What sort of a fan are you? I'm calling you, that's terrible. Right. Chewbacca, he's in a suit. He's a bit more lifelike. But they're very good, Star Wars, at having these sort of droid-like characters, especially in the later movies that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. There's always a comedy element, wasn't there? You know, BB-8 was really good, the way they delivered some of his comedy without even speaking. It was all sounds and expressions and the way his head tilted and things like that. The Mandalorian, for me, he's such a good character. I don't want him to take his mask off, Dave. You know, like a lot of the things you watch, like, no, Darth Vader's like, take his mask off when you were a kid and that. I don't want it with the Mandalorian. I just think that the whole start of this again is brilliant. He comes into this town, doesn't he? He's got Baby Yoda, Dave, and we know that this series, they're going to absolutely rinse Baby Yoda on the screen because he's become a phenomenon and he's an absolute... I can't imagine what the sales must be for children under, like, say, 12 years old. The amount of figures, toys that have been sold, and even adults, you know, some of the Funko Pop stuff and things like that. Dave, he should become an absolute pop culture icon from nowhere.
Yeah, and I must admit, I've got a Baby Yoda T-shirt myself, straight from Primani. So, no, it is, and you know, I can see that. You know, there would be quite a lot of people, I think, who're probably a little bit critical of things like Baby Yoda. You know, the fact that it's over Disneyfying the Star Wars universe and what have you. But I don't buy into that. Baby Yoda is just the cutest thing on TV, isn't he? You know, it's just, yeah. And of course we know, we discussed in the last, when we covered our previous review, I'm sure we said, you know, he's not really Baby Yoda. We just don't know what Yoda's species actually is. So, you know, maybe that's something that they're going to explore, you know, in this series. But I mean, it seems like at the start of it, the Mandalorian's looking to try and locate what the child's species is, you know, so old Baby Yoda. So that's why I think maybe they might kind of let us know what Yoda's species is. And he approaches this criminal, this Gor Koresh bloke, and he supposedly knows the whereabouts, and they're having this ring fight. And Chris, you know, when you've got this boxing match, or it's not really a boxing match because there's weapons and everything. Let's say MMA with these Gamorrean guards. I'm just like, oh, you know what? I get the feeling that Jon Favreau is at least as much of a fan as anyone, if not bigger, you know, because he just seems to... He's giving us this new story, obviously, you know, and outside of the whole Skywalker saga. But there's so many nods to old Star Wars. We saw these guys first in Return of the Jedi, didn't we? They were working in Jabba's palace. And I just thought, oh, it's brilliant. Because why wouldn't you get these big hulking things to fight each other, you know, and have betting matches on it and stuff? So I just thought the opening was brilliant.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I had the figures of them, Dave, because they had the mask. And obviously in Return of the Jedi, they get eaten by the big monster, don't they, when Luke goes down there and has a fight with him and gets chewed up. So I always had that figure, and he was the one that Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, and I had the black Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker used to kick the shit out of, Dave. So it was great to have that. And it was a good scene. A little bit reminiscent, I'm going to reach here, Dave, big time, of the Wolverine scene when he fights against Fred in the boxing ring. You know, I don't know why, but it just had a little bit, it reminded me of that slightly, I don't know why. But anyway, moving swiftly on.
Fred Dukes, the blob.
Fred Dukes, the big guy, the blob, yeah. I didn't call you blob.
There is a ring, I guess.
Yeah. I said bub, you said blob, yeah. Anyway, yeah, great, that, really good at the start. And I love the fact that he's got like 6 or 7 guns on him, like the laser cannons are ready to blow him apart, and all of a sudden he just dispatches these like missiles, doesn't he, and takes them out, and that guy does a runner and he's fighting. Again, Dave, the fighting's brilliant in it. I think what I would say is the Star Wars stuff is legendary, but when you watch it back, there's a lot, the fighting in it, there's hardly anything, and it's pretty shit in it. It's almost, you know, I love Superman 2, but the fighting in that is just like push, run at you, fly at you. There's no real punching. Even in the Man of Steel, there's a bit of punching here and there, but there's not a lot because it's mainly Superman flying and saving people. In the original Star Wars stuff, it's very crap. We laughed about it when we did this with Scott and Mike about the famous stormtroopers just not being able to shoot you from like 10 yards away and all that stuff. It's just nonsense. But in this, Dave, there's real oomph behind everything that happens. There's an arc there completely, and it's thingies that go Koresh is John Leguizamo, isn't he? He was the horrible clown in Spawn, but he was in like John Wick and stuff
him,
like that.
Right,
He's
okay.
the voice. So, but again, it's not what I would say. It's not got anything different than what you've seen in the first series. But why would you change it? Because it was so good, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? I'm not expecting him to invent the wheel with this. I just want the same stuff. And at the moment, from what we've seen in this episode, it's fantastic, especially at the start. It's really good.
Yeah, I don't know why, Chris. And I don't think we have to rate these episodes, but for me, I think it's slightly better. And I don't know if it's because I'm more bought in. Obviously, from episode 1, I was bought in from series 1. But because, we saw the whole of that season, we've had a break from it, I was just so elated to get some brand new Mandalorian back on the screens. But I don't know what it is. It just feels a little bit better, a bit more epic, a bit more polished. I couldn't quite put my finger on why I think it's marginally better. But I agree with you. That fight scene was fantastic, and I like the fact it doesn't really, hang around in terms of getting into the action, does it? It's straight in there, and he takes out all the other guys because they basically want his Beskar armor, don't they? And once he's hung upside down, this Koresh, he reveals that, there is another Mandalorian, so someone you might be interested in speaking to on Tatooine. And then I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I am. I was saying, like, oh, here we go.
And so it's like, and in the past, I guess we've been a bit critical at how small this galaxy actually is. We always seem to end up back at Tatooine and, where the Skywalkers all live and hide out at the same time. But, I must admit, when he did say Tatooine, I was like, oh, come on, let's get back there. Let's go.
Yeah, I was a proper fanboyed out, Dave. And it's quite interesting because when he goes into the bar, and I think you touched on this before, it's very similar to like a spaghetti western, isn't it? You've gone into a bit of a Sergio Leone rabbit hole, haven't you? Because when we did Tombstone, didn't you? And you've watched a lot of them. And this is very reminiscent of them old school setups where he goes into the bar. There's a bit of a standoff. He has a bit of a duel. But also, the guy who he meets, he's called, I'm only reading this, Dave, Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's played by Timothy Oliphant. Now, we watched him when we did VHS Strikes Back because he's the killer in Scream 2. Spoilers, everyone. Yeah, it was from 97. But he's also in, Dave, and I forgot he was in it. He's the police sidekick because I saw the end of it the other day in Gone in 60 Seconds as well. So he always got, a lot of people picked him out as a bit of a Christian Slater lookalike because he had the same hair and good-looking, chiseled jawline and that. So he's a great. I mean, Dave, I've got to be honest, Dave. He looks good for him. He must be in his 40s now, at least, or late 40s.
He's a good-looking man, isn't he? He is a tasty dish. He did. There was a series I watched a bit of on Netflix called The Santa Clara Diet. He stars as like he's married to Drew Barrymore's character, and he was pretty good in that, I thought. And it's basically Drew Barrymore becomes this zombie, and so they end up having, but she's kind of aware of herself, but she still needs to feed and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a dark comedy kind of thing. So he was pretty good in that. And so, I thought he was pretty good. And of course, when he turns up, you can see he's got this ragtag kind of Boba Fett armor, and you're like, oh, that's unmistakable as Boba Fett's armor, that. And you're sort of thinking, oh, where's he got it? Turns out he's got it from the Jawas. And they have this initial kind of showdown, don't they? But this bit of a Mexican standoff, it's not a Mexican standoff, there's only the two of them in there. But this bit of a standoff that they have is interrupted because you have this, basically it's like Tremors. Do you ever watch Tremors, Chris?
I have, Dave, actually, with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I've seen it
it
in the first one. Yeah,
really reminded me of Tremors. So this little town, this Mos Pelgo town, is basically being haunted and stalked by this greater crate dragon. Now, these, Chris, I did have to read this up, and this is where we could do with Mike, but he'll be able to tell us a bit more in future episodes, I'm sure. But apparently a skeleton of it was shown in the 77 movie, A New Hope. Now, I couldn't actually think what that was, but that's where these things go back to. But you actually saw them. They were in the game Star Wars Commando, which came out in 2014. And so, these things aren't just created for the Mandalorian, but again, it's another kind of reach into the Star Wars lore that, again, the guys, well, Jon Favreau, and I'm sure he's not writing it on his own, he'll have a team of writers and stuff, they are reaching back for some of this stuff. And so they end up kind of united, don't they, in trying to take down this dragon. And he says, if we can get rid of this dragon, I'll give you the armor back.
Yeah, and you know what though, Dave? You said about the armor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the timeline of it, I must admit, but in my head watching it, I was thinking that when Boba Fett fell into that monster in Return of the Jedi, that's how they got his armor. I don't know, is this before or after? It's after Return of the Jedi, isn't it?
It's about 5 years after, or I'm sure the first season was about 5 years after Return of the Jedi, I think they said.
Yeah, it was just in my head. That's the first thing I thought. Oh, they've got his outfit because they've got it out that monster that he fell into the pit. So I don't know whether that's true. Mike could probably tell me better, but
I thought. So I'm guessing the monster probably pooped him out.
Yeah,
but I thought. I seem to remember there's a line in Return of the Jedi that you get digested over 1,000 years or something.
All right, that's not very good then, Dave.
So there probably is, is in this little, what we might suggest could be a plot hole. There's going to be a little story that I'm sure there's a comic, or there's going to be something in Star Wars Rebels, or something that alludes to how this armor got into the hands of the Jawas.
Dave, fucking full well, and anyone who's listened to us do these Star Wars things, Mike is the man. But he will definitely correct us and go, hang on, there was a 6 comic novel run just to justify where Boba Fett went after Return of the Jedi. He probably escapes with his jetpack, got him out of the monster before he killed him or something. But there'll be something. That's not being disrespectful to Mike, but that's just what Star Wars do. Every time we've talked to Mike and we found plot holes, and Scott was the same, Mike is fantastic, his knowledge, just to throw it out there and go, hang on, no, there was a run actually in whatever year, and that justified what happened, like the Darth Maul one in Solo, Dave.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like we're all like, he's gone, and spoilers if you haven't seen, but he appears, and then Mike's like, no, that's to do with this run of comics, and you're like, but if you weren't a Star Wars fan, you would just go straight away, well, that's a load of bullshit. Why is he not here? Nobody dies in Star Wars because there's always an angle to bring him back, So I love it. In the same respects, I always think it's just a proper blag when they just do that sort of thing as well.
Well, I think with Darth Maul, it was in Clone Wars, if memory serves me right. So it wasn't actually in the comics. So it's one of those where these days, it doesn't seem like you can just watch the movies. So you don't have to watch everything, but I think you get rewarded more. And so, I mean, I listen along to Mike's episodes, so Comics in Canon drops every Saturday, and I always listen to them, but I don't keep up with every single comic run. So I don't know, he might discuss some of this stuff, but I'm really looking forward to when we can get him on and then discuss some of this stuff that we might have missed.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it gets, for me, I guess the episode lulls a little bit there, when they're trying to get set up. But I tell you what, I thought it was quite interesting where you end up with this kind of uneasy alliance. So we have the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
And so, they're a kind of, they're pissed off with the dragon coming and eating things as well. So, they end up teaming up, but it's not it's not a very easy alliance. And actually, I did feel like the Tusken Raiders got more of their fair share of, people getting eaten.
Yeah, the monster had a few of them, Dave, didn't he?
Yeah. I was like, come on.
When they put that elephant type, I
think they're banthas, aren't they?
The banthas, yeah, it looks like a mammoth or something, doesn't it? And he offers it up, and the fucking monster comes out and eats a Tusken Raider, and you get that bit of comedy look from the two Tusken Raiders to go, oh shit, and that's where. In the first Star Wars with Ben Kenobi and all that, and Luke, when he gets attacked by them and stuff, they're the bad guys. They're like these little horrible, and they're alluded to that they're just a horrible race of people. But when you watch things and you have it later on and they've done it, a lot of the characters are very redeemable in the Star Wars universe, Dave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure they had to kick Luke's ass in A New Hope, not quite sure what they were doing there. But I mean, from this episode, like you say, they're just, they've just got a different culture. They're just a different way of life. But, plenty of fodder for the dragon to eat. I don't know why it just rubbed me the wrong way, because did any of the townspeople get eaten?
No, nobody did.
It was almost like, these Tusken Raiders, they don't matter. So, we'll sacrifice a few of those.
But I think as well, it was obvious the one thing I'd say, like I say, why invent the wheel? You don't need to with this. The formula's brilliant. And you could see the way it was going to get the outfit and all that stuff, and to get the respect off Cobb to would give him the outfit. They've got to kill this dragon. And we get, like you say, we've had the Raiders offering themselves up. They've ended up getting killed and all this. But I could see how it was going to finish that bit of the movie. And the movie, well, it was like a movie, really, wasn't it? Because it's the way it's produced is like a movie. It's brilliant. And I must admit, Dave, I'm hoping, totally different subject matter, but I'm hoping that the Snyder Cut takes a leap out of this for production value and stuff like that, because this is, I know it's supposed to be TV, but it's just a movie every time you watch it for me. I just think the quality is on them levels. I know the Snyder Cut's probably got more budget and stuff, but even so, the production in it is brilliant. And I think Jon Favreau, again, they might, because Jon Favreau's leading the way, Dave, with this, but Jon Favreau's brilliant the way he's done this one. I think he did one episode in the last series, did he? Or did he produce one?
Well, I mean, he's the showrunner. But I think he did write a few of the different a few different episodes. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure that, the showrunners quite often they'll take the first one and the last one, and then let other people kind of deal with that. But as soon as you put me on the spot, I will just have a quick look. So, actually, no, I'm wrong. Chris, he wrote the first 4 episodes. Then Dave Filoni wrote episode 5. Episode 6 was the story was by Christopher Yost, and the teleplay, it says, was Christopher Yost and Rick Famuyiwa.
Oh yeah, no, Dave.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue, that one. Now Christopher Yost, he did a brilliant. He did quite a lot of TV writing, but he actually wrote a run on X-Force as well, which is like a Black Ops team of the X-Men. So him and Kyle. So Christopher Yost and. I think, is it Jeremy Kyle? No, it's not Jeremy Kyle.
Jeremy Kyle, I wonder what's happened to him since his show went off, Dave. But yeah. Are you missing him, Dave? The lie detector test.
It's Craig. Craig Kyle. Craig Kyle, not Jeremy Kyle.
I love that with you, David. You've done that where we've interviewed someone and you've said their name wrong, but you're so committed to it, you carry on. And I'm sat here pissing myself. I'm pissing myself with the mic muted, going, I'm not even telling him that he's saying the wrong name.
It's brilliant. Fucking Jeremy Kyle. That's going to tickle me for the rest of the day, that is.
That is amazing.
Right, so episodes 7 and 8 were written by Jon Favreau as well. So, he hands over the directing to other people. few different people directed different episodes of that. Taika Waititi did episode 8. But yeah, it looks like Jon Favreau's like writing them all pretty much. And if I look at the episodes coming up for season 2, it looks like he writes the majority of them as well. So you got Dave Filoni will do episode 5, and you've got Rick Famuyiwa again. Yeah, so he's doing episode 7. But those are the only 2 episodes. Jon Favreau's writing the rest of them.
Oh, that's good. Well, Dave, if it's as good as this first episode, then the quality is going to be amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And like you say, the special effects are pretty fucking good, aren't they? You know, and I think things like Game of Thrones, I think really stepped it up in terms of what we can expect from a TV series in terms of special effects. Go back 20 years. You know, TV was just, you watched a TV movie and it was very obvious it was a TV movie. Whereas this, you know, I think this carries on the way the likes of Game of Thrones was going. And I thought it was quite clever as well, because you don't really see all of the dragon, do you? You know, quite often it's covered by the sand, and you know he's got his head peeking out the top of the kind of hill as well. So yeah, it was pretty good. And then of course you get the old. It was a bit of a Drax move, wasn't it? Like Guardians of the Galaxy. So the Mandalorian gets the dragon to swallow him up, but I agree. You never feel like he's in danger at all. I mean, the whole show's about the Mandalorian, so, you know, he's never going to be in any danger at all.
No, he's not. And obviously, he gets the suit. Him and Cobb become mates, don't they? He's like, you know, thanks and takes it, Dave. But there's been plenty of speculation, Dave, and this bit made my day. And I'm so glad that this guy didn't have the stupid wig on that he had on in Aquaman. But we get to see, Dave, the old scarred Boba Fett, don't we, Dave? Played by Tamora Morrison, who, was obviously Arthur's dad in Aquaman with the worst wig we've ever seen. But in this, brilliant. And he was he Jango Fett as well in the original, in the Ewan McGregor run as well?
So in the prequels, he was Jango Fett, wasn't he? Yeah. But it was him who... Oh, yeah, because they replaced Boba Fett's voice, didn't they? When they touched up the originals in the late 90s, I'm sure they put his voice over Boba Fett as well. So, I mean, it could be Boba Fett, or, I mean, you had all those clones, didn't you?
Yeah.
All the Clone Wars and everything was based on Jango Fett. So, I don't know. Is it Boba Fett? Is it Jango Fett? If it is Jango Fett. Oh, no, Jango died, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think. But, yeah, so, I mean, the obvious thing, as soon as he popped up, I'm like, oh, it's fucking Boba Fett. Brilliant. But then I'm thinking, oh, it could have been another clone, maybe. But then would a clone, you know, be... You know, would he be interested in the Mandalorian suit? I don't know. The obvious thing is it looks like it's Boba Fett, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that just completely Easter eggs anybody who's a Star Wars fan. And I would love to say, well, I'd love to hear Mike's interpretation of all that, Dave, because I'm sure with his encyclopedic knowledge, there'll be some angle, and I'd love to know what he thinks of that. Because we've messaged in our group, haven't we, the Comics in Motion group, and everyone, there's not been one person yet who's actually watched it has said anything critical of it. We've all in such high praise, which is good for us, but obviously, anyone out there as well, if you think the same or you disagree, I'd love to hear it, Dave, because I just think the quality is fantastic. And the only thing that lets it down, which pees me off, is this weekly installment of the episodes. I just want to binge it in one sitting. Yeah. A mate of mine at work come to me today. He's in his 50s. He's not exactly a massive Star Wars fan. He's watched all the films over the years. And he come to me this morning, he went, that Mandalorian, I watched the whole first series over the weekend in one day. I went, the second series has started now. And he went, you what? He goes, you're joking. I could have watched it. Yes. I went, yeah, it started the first episode. So he's on that tonight. And he was like, how good is that series? He said, it's just like a film. I said, yeah, it is. It's really good.
It is, and I think, like I say, the fact that it's Star Wars, but in a Western kind of style, and giving homages and nods to all of the things that we've seen previously from this galaxy or the Star Wars universe, if you like. No, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And as you were talking then, I was just thinking, no, I'm pretty sure. So Jango Fett had his fucking head cut off, didn't he, by Samuel L. Jackson?
I don't think he's going to come back.
Mace Windu, yeah. So it'd have to be. He's not walking away from that one.
No, and I think time scale wise, Boba Fett would be, or Jango Fett would be. In Jango Boba's dad. I'm well off on isn't it? So it's got to be Boba Fett, Dave. It has to be, because considering this is after. And you're right. I'm saying, when's the timeline? They actually say in this episode about the second Death Star getting destroyed, don't they? That's what. I think he says, that Cobb guy. He says it, doesn't he? So I should have picked up on that. But yeah, so he's got to be Boba Fett. Well, even if like say it might be a clone, but the scars and that allude to the fact that something's happened for him to give up his suit or something like that. So that's going to be there probably till about the fourth or fifth episode before we get to find out what the score is, I think.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good point about the second Death Star going up. I'm sure when we went back and talked about Return of the Jedi, we were saying about, okay, so we blew up the Death Star. You've dismantled the Empire or defeated the Empire. Now what? Because George Lucas had replaced that final scene, hadn't he, where it was just like a bit of a party in the Ewok village, with everyone celebrating over the whole galaxy. Jon Favreau's got, this lawlessness, these people going in, taking over the town, while there's that power vacuum and that. So, again, Chris, I just think it's brilliant. It sort of, it grounds it in terms of like, it takes an event and then explores, okay, well, what's the logical thing that would happen next there? So, no, honestly, Chris, I'm absolutely loving this series.
I am, and genuine, everyone listening, we've not said a bad thing about it. It's so, so good. You have to go and watch it. If you've got a Disney subscription, it's well worth just paying for 1 month just to watch everything Mandalorian, or wait until the whole series is out in the open and then just borrow it for a month and then watch it all, because it's fantastic. The stuff is cinema level directing and acting, and that is so good.
Yeah, and like I say about the Sergio Leone stuff, I think it's, having watched some of those more recently, it's those really wide shots, that you see in the desert, and that gives it this epic Western feel as well. And so, yeah, it's just fantastic stuff.
It is.
Now, Chris, how can everyone get in contact with us?
As always, guys, on Twitter, @comicsinmotionp. If you want to email us, thecomicsinmotionpocast@gmail.com. And honestly, we're going to have, like Dave said at the top of the show, we're going to have Mike on, Scott on. We're going to have a mix of me and Dave with them two hosting. And we're just going to talk about the whole thing again. It's great to get the band back together and also gets different people's perspectives, because I think obviously we're on Mike's channel now, Star Wars Comics in Canon. This is his baby. So we're just teeing it up for this, and I honestly cannot wait to listen to Mike's perspective. Whether I'm a guest on with him or you are, Dave, I will be tuning in because I love his knowledge of Star Wars. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think he'd hinted at the fact that, there's lots of tie-ins as well. There's lots of Mandalorian lore that's laid out in Star Wars Rebels. So, I think there's about 4 seasons of that, which I haven't watched, but it's going to be really interesting when Mike comes on and we can get a bit deeper on, some of the things, like I say, that we've probably missed.
Yeah, exactly. So, Dave, thank you so much for indulging us today. I really enjoyed this. A totally different episode for me and you, but I've really loved it, and I cannot wait for this week. So we'll see you next time.
Bye now.